This video is sponsored by Opera GX. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to Deck Ready, the channel all about the Steam Deck. If you want more videos like this, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So the other day I was playing Destiny 2 on my Steam Deck from my microSD that has Windows 11 installed, and I noticed a few comments asking me if I've tried a few different things. The first one being Steam Remote Play, the second one being Steam Link, connecting my Steam Deck to a Steam Link, and the third one being Moonlight, and I haven't tried any of those things. So I thought it'd be fun if for this video I tried out as many of those things as I could. But before I jump into it, I gotta cut to my sponsor, Opera GX. I switched over to Opera GX back in December when I got my new gaming PC. It's really simple and it imports stuff like browsing history, bookmarks, and cookies. And on top of that, while Opera does have its own extension store, if you're already using a bunch on Google Chrome, like if that's your main browser, you can actually just use those in Opera GX as well. You'll notice when you head over to the Chrome web store that there's a new button there called Add to Opera, and that's all you have to click to add these extensions. Another cool feature Opera GX has is that you can log into all your social media. Like I logged into Twitter and Discord, and those will always be available on the left sidebar and you just click them. But my favorite feature of all that's also related to the sidebar is GX Player. It allows you to log into a bunch of different music streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music. And finally, if you like having everything synced between your computer and your phone, Opera GX is also available on mobile. So if this sounds cool and you want to switch to Opera GX, everything you need is linked down in the description and also in a pinned comment. Thanks again to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. So in today's video, I have my Steam Deck here. Well, actually, it's Royce's Steam Deck. It's the original Steam Deck I got way back when this thing launched. Then my order came up. I ordered my Steam Deck. That Steam Deck unfortunately broke, which we are going to call my fault. It is still being repaired at Valve. So the first thing you're going to need for this process is the internet on both devices. Whether you're at home or outside, you're going to have to make sure that your PC is connected to the internet and logged into the same Steam account that you're going to be using on your Steam Deck. After that, we're going to have to set some stuff on the PC you'll be streaming from. So go into Steam Settings, open up the Remote Play tab, and hit Advanced Host Options. Everything is pretty good on default, but there's a box you can check to change the resolution of your PC to the device you're streaming to. So knowing that your PC probably is running a 1080p 4K 1440p screen and the Steam Deck is running a 1280 by 800 screen, you don't want to be streaming those way higher resolutions to your Steam Deck because that's just overkill, right? Like if you're streaming 1080p to an 800p device, it's going to be harder than streaming an 800p signal to that same device. It's just less pixels being pushed over the internet. After that, make sure you check the box that says prioritize network traffic. So if people are streaming Netflix, they're watching the new show on Hulu, they're watching Moonlight, they're doing a bunch of stuff on your internet, maybe they're playing on a PS5, you know, all the other people you live with hogging up your bandwidth, you can make sure that the Steam Deck prioritizes its network traffic so that it's the only stream going out and it's uninterrupted by everything else going on. Now, obviously, if you're running like 50 million things connected to the internet, that is going to degrade your experience overall. So realistically, the most ideal way to set this up would be to make sure that no one is actively using the internet when you want to do this. But just for the peace of mind, make sure you leave this box checked. Now over on the Steam Deck, you can actually mess around with some different settings as well. So if you go into the settings menu and then scroll all the way down to the dedicated remote play section, you have a ton of options, but they're kind of hidden at first under advanced streaming options. You just toggle that on and it opens up an entire new menu. So the menu you're going to want to pay attention to in here is video. It's defaulted to balanced, which is basically like the quality of the video being streamed from your PC to your Steam Deck. You can actually change it though to beautiful, which is going to prioritize the best graphics, or fast, which is going to prioritize the best performance. I just leave it at balanced because that tends to work just fine, and I just notice the difference when I have it set to beautiful. It's just a little too laggy for me personally, but again, it's up to personal preference, so try them all out and see what works best for you. You can also change the audio from stereo to quadraphonic and 5.1 surround. I'm just going to leave it at stereo because the Steam Deck is a stereo speaker device. I don't have it plugged in to anything else. And after that, you can set things like the bandwidth limit, you can set the frame rate limit, you can set the resolution limit, and you can turn on and off hardware decoding. It is on by default. I'm assuming that makes it so that the Steam Deck can use some of its own processing power to make the stream come in faster and display better. I'm no expert here, but I just leave it on because it was defaulted to on. Now, before I jump into remote playing my main gaming PC from my Steam Deck, I'm going to tell you about one more option in this menu, which is pair Steam Link. So way back in the day when Valve was working on stuff like Steam machines and the Steam controller, they also had a device called the Steam Link. It was a $15 little little card-sized device that you would plug into your TV and also hopefully have an Ethernet cord connected to your router, and then you could do the same thing that we're doing on the Steam Deck, which is stream your games to your TV. This was a great way to play your games on a TV because you didn't have to connect your entire gaming PC, and especially if it was in another room, you wouldn't have to have a super long HDMI cord or DisplayPort cord to go all the way from your computer to your TV. You could stream over your home network, and I had one of these things. It was so awesome. It worked incredibly well. The quality was great, even on lower quality internet. It really was hard to notice the latency, and the video picture quality that came through was awesome. I noticed that a ton of people were asking about this device. Unfortunately, Valve discontinued it, but now you can actually use the Steam Link to play your Steam Deck games on the TV and use your Steam Deck as the controller. So it's kind of like a wireless Nintendo Switch, right? Like you connect to the Steam Link on your TV, you have the game running on your Steam Deck, but it's showing full sized on your TV, and you can use the Steam Deck to control it versus using a Steam controller or an Xbox One controller or whatever controller you want to use on your gaming PC. Now, thankfully, enough of these things were sold that the markup on them isn't really too bad. You can look on eBay, and I see them going for 30 or 40 bucks all the time to stream games from your Steam Deck to your TV. It might be worth picking one of these up until Valve comes out with their official dock, because at that point, you could buy a couple of those. Have one dock at your desk with a monitor, keyboard, and mouse permanently hooked up to it, and then another dock connected to your TV where you can just drop your Steam Deck in, connect it, and then connect a controller to it wirelessly and use it as a gaming PC on your TV. Might look a little blocky and pixelated because I don't think you're going to be pushing 4K in very many games or even 1080p, but still, the option is going to be there, and that's pretty cool. But if you don't want to buy the Steam Link device, there's also an app you can download on pretty much any device out there, whether it's your iPhone, your iPad, your Android phone that has the Google Play Store, your Android phone that doesn't have the Google Play Store, your Raspberry Pi, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, you're good to go. So the best way to do this obviously would be to use your beefier, powerful desktop rig, but if all you have is a Steam Deck, this is a viable option. You can play your Steam Deck games streamed to your phone or your iPad. I don't know why you'd be out in public with just an iPad and not your Steam Deck, but if you want to do it, the option is there. Anyway, going back to remote play, if everything is set up right, you can go to any game that's installed on your main computer, and when you click on it, next to the install button, if it's not already on your Steam Deck, and next to the play button, if the game already is, you'll see a little drop down arrow that you can now select. All right, so once I got Steam Remote Play set up on my Steam Deck, I started up Destiny 2, and I thought at first everything worked great. It looked like it was coming through at 60 frames per second. The resolution changed on my PC's monitor. It seemed like everything was fine, but then I realized that Steam button inputs weren't working, but the touchscreen did. Like when I hit the touchscreen, it took me to the character select screen like it normally does. So I did a bunch of Googling, and I guess Destiny 2 on PC just doesn't support Steam's input, but there are ways around this. I'll get to that in a minute, because in the meantime, I tried a couple other games that were installed on my PC. I started out with Cyberpunk 2077, which on my PC is running at a mix of like high and ultra settings at 1440p. I'm using DLSS set to quality. It looks and runs great. It stays at a locked 60 frames per second all the time, no matter what. I tried it on my Steam Deck. Obviously the resolution lowered to 800p, but man, this was a great experience. I was getting a few frame drops here and there, but I would rate this experience more than playable. Like if I wanted to do some of the Cyber Psycho side quests from bed or something like that instead of sitting at my desk where I am right now, I think it would work totally fine. And the internet at my office where I tested all of this out is actually worse than the internet I have at home. So I feel like it would actually work a whole lot better than it did in my office where people were uploading and downloading footage and basically everyone was on the internet. The next game I decided to play is Dying Light 2. So this game can run at 30 frames per second on the Steam Deck. You have to lower the settings quite a bit, and this is just a game that feels so much better at 60 FPS because you're running over rooftops, and I tried out running all over the city and I got the frame rate to drop just a little bit, especially when I got into combat with zombies, but as a whole, the experience was largely pretty good. But still, it was a totally playable experience. Exploring some of the interior structures I think would work totally fine at night, getting some of the inhibitors, running all over town and doing some quick and easy side quests, that's the stuff I feel like would be totally fine over streaming, and then I would save the heavier story missions or some of the heavier combat scenarios like the random boss fights you can find all over the city. Those are what I would save for being on my actual PC. But now let's go back to Destiny 2, because I ended up finding a really cool way to stream it from my PC that worked really well through an app called Moonlight. Now, I've heard of this a bunch of times from people down in the comments in my videos. Basically what it does is trick the GeForce Experience app on your NVIDIA graphics card PC. So you need an NVIDIA graphics card as a disclaimer. It tricks your app into thinking that your Steam Deck is an NVIDIA Shield. So when you download this Moonlight app from the Discover store, it's basically already set up. As long as you're on the same internet as your NVIDIA graphics card PC, it should just work totally fine. Now, the issue I ran into is that I have a laptop, like my main gaming PC is a laptop, and it has NVIDIA Optimus, so it actually runs the main monitor of the laptop through the iGPU first before it hits the dedicated GPU. Once you have it running in the game mode, it actually shows all of the games that are available to be streamed with their box art. Obviously, the first game I wanted to try though was Destiny 2, and the touchscreen still worked even though I was on the desktop, so I opened that game up in Steam. It still switched my resolution to 800p, which was awesome, and this was a really good experience. Again, I'm going to say it for a third time, I think the internet was a culprit here, because when it was working flawlessly, like 60 FPS at max settings, how I run it on my PC, but again at 800p. I was running around the throne world, which is weirdly the hardest part of this game to run. It's the only place where I've ever seen frames drop for me below 60, but yeah, it didn't look like it was dropping frames, it just looked like the stream was chugging. So if you have an NVIDIA graphics card in your PC, I think this is the way to stream games if you don't really care about having that streamlined experience of having it all built in to SteamOS. And then when it comes to Destiny 2, you have two other options, one of them being Stadia. People really like the Stadia version of Destiny 2 just because Stadia's streaming is largely pretty good. The biggest issue with Stadia is that if you want to stream from it, you have to own each individual game. I'm pretty sure though that Destiny 2, for some reason, at least the Beyond Light edition, comes with Stadia. And then the final method you can use is GeForce Now, which is a really cool streaming service that you can set up the same way you set up Xbox cloud streaming on the Steam Deck. You basically just make it so that the shortcut you set up opens the browser and takes it right to GeForce Now instead of the home screen and makes it full screen. And the way that works is you get a virtual desktop that you can log into Steam on, and if a game is supported on GeForce Now, it'll show up in your Steam library and you'll be able to play it over the cloud from a PC in the cloud. It's honestly pretty cool, and if you want to pay the X number of dollars a month that GeForce Now costs, you get access to a PC with a 3080 in it, which will be able to run most games at high to max settings, and that should stream pretty well to the Steam Deck.